Come on, boys! We're back! And we are horizontal for all of you nitpicky, boring people that don't like a vertical video. Yeah, Big Russ, you stuck with us, man. Love that. What is going on?
That's embarrassing. This is Two Dads United. Stuart, what are we going to talk about today?
I think, I just tweeted that we were going to talk about the Columbus Crew. Save the Crew. So Anthony Precourt, based in San Francisco, invests, buys the club, and it has just come out. He bought the club a couple of years ago, so he's only been there a little bit. The first soccer-specific stadium in America, Crew Stadium in Columbus, a place I have a close relationship with because my wife is from there. And the news was just leaked the other day that they have been shopping the team effectively to move them to Austin, Texas.
When you say shopping, just to move, not to change ownership.
Not to change ownership. So he's actually been offered, what also came out today was that people have made offers of $75 million to join the ownership group to keep them in Columbus, Ohio. The other wrinkle in this whole thing is that as this came out, the Columbus Crew qualified for the playoffs. They didn't qualify last year. They're back in the playoffs this year. And they have taken season ticket deposits and full commitments for season tickets next season, and they're not refunding any of those people. So people in Columbus are very
good PR.
Not good PR at all. Not good press. The owner came out yesterday, made a public statement on Twitter, and he said, "Stay with us. It's just the unfortunate side of the business. Support their team on the field. That's what's important right now." How do you focus if you're a fan? Would you even turn up at the game? Tell me if you're a diehard Crew fan. But they're not going to offer you a refund for your ticket, and they might even just move your team for 2019 to Austin, Texas.
You have to refund the ticket.
You have to.
I mean, first of all, you're killing your franchise. No one's going to want to even support the team through this season. Second of all, then you're never going to have any positive spin out of this.
By the way, quickly, Frank Terra, do you know him? He says he's Frank from Miami. I was at your wedding. So if you don't know him, that's a problem.
Well, my first question would be, which wedding?
Nice. Okay, back to the Crew. So, yeah, what do you do if you're a fan? And then I'm interested in your take of the ownership of. I mean, what a time! I know you don't choose when it gets leaked, but
listen, I can't speak for the particulars on why that owner would want to move. I'm sure there's a good reason why he wants to move, but there's a way to do it. This doesn't seem exciting for anyone involved right now. But it's not really something that I can speak on because I don't know the details. I would just say that horrible when a city loses its franchise, and I think likening it to Vancouver being from British Columbia, losing the Grizzlies in the NBA, going to Memphis. Vancouver's a premier city. I think you'll attest to it.
Great city. One of my favorites.
Place. We struggled a little bit, obviously, in our time in the NBA with the dollar, the exchange rate, and also.
Do you think it would be a success if the Grizzlies went back to Vancouver now?
I think over the last 20 years, the Grizzlies would have been a success, but especially as the Canadian dollar was so strong for a portion of that, but you would have built a really loyal fan base. The problem was they were managed by one group that didn't succeed, and by the time that group was out, they were gone to Memphis. They didn't even get a chance to really be a winner. And so the last place team in the league, more or less, was still getting $14,000 a night, which at that time in the NBA was pretty reasonable. And as things have gotten
better. But have the Grizzlies been a success in Memphis?
No. I mean, they've had a good team recently, which has obviously boosted their numbers. But Vancouver never had a good team. Yeah, it would have been fantastic to see Vancouver with a good team. And expansion teams take time. You don't just walk into a league, any league, let alone the NBA, and rip it off the bat and say, all right, we're close to the playoffs, we're a playoff team. So now that the Grizzlies went through Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, Zach Randolph, Tony Allen, that was a great team. That was a team that could beat anybody on any given night. If the Vancouver fan base had that, there could have been a real identity.
But Austin, if the Crew do move to Austin, Austin is a professional sports town, has no real track record. They actually had the USL team that then moved to Orlando and then had success in Orlando and then became professional MLS team with Orlando City and Orlando. And so it was a market that they actually moved away from. Yeah. So I'm still skeptical as far as if you take the Columbus Crew to Austin, that would even succeed, because they were talking about an area for a stadium that was north of the city, and they said they're still exploring different things. And the stipulation for the Crew owner says, hey, if we don't get a downtown stadium for the Columbus Crew, that's when we're out of here. So it could be a political lobbying, but I just get the sense he wants to absolutely move the team. So
I mean, Austin's a premier city in America. Yeah. It's a fantastic place. I don't know how the weather would be, but the weather's pretty tough in a lot of
Houston, places. Dallas, same things.
Yeah, so I guess it's fine. I mean, you can make it work, but it's just I'd love to see someone else step up and try to get Austin in the expansion situation. But
let's see. This guy says, Steve, are you still playing soccer? And then one guy says he misses watching you play. He was a big fan and agrees with you about Vancouver. If left the Grizzlies would have been great now. It's not a full sentence. That makes sense.
I love that.
But I love it.
That suits me. I know exactly what you mean. No worries.
I'm being the smart ass here. So let's spin it forward.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is a good buddy of mine. I'm sure you have a relationship with him. Is Claudio Reyna, one of the all-time great soccer players this country's produced. Had some comments this week saying that the U.S. and coaches in the U.S. are arrogant and entitled, and paraphrasing here.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of like his comments.
Yeah.
I mean, what did he say from your side?
I'll pull the article up again because I quote tweeted it, and it was something about the arrogance of the U.S.
Yeah. Well, it goes on.
He said we're far too arrogant, we're far too obnoxious, and I wrote a little facetiously, well, we're American, isn't that what we do best? Because in general, Americans are very cocky and very arrogant, and we believe we're the best. If we're not the best already, we want to be the best, and nothing is less than the best. At times, which, and I do agree with Claudia Reyna, is that clouds our judgment, and we've been far too arrogant about this sport for a long time. I don't think domestically. I think maybe, we realize our place as far as NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, and then there's always this soccer, hockey tiered, level, and soccer always feels like we're fighting. So then when we do have success, we want to project that we're doing a lot better than we actually are. And ultimately, whenever you see soccer in the United States mentioned on the biggest scale, on every week on SportsCenter or on Fox Sports or whatever it might be, coverage in the New York Times, it's always during when the national team's doing well, which we're not doing. So I think in many ways we feel that's a blow to us as far as increasing the exposure worldwide. But I'm going to read some of Claudio's quotes here, where he said...
And while you're looking for, Claudio played at Leverkusen, Rangers, City, Sunderland. Yeah. He played at some really big clubs. He was a fantastic player. Was great for the U.S. in the World Cup, in particular in Korea, Japan, when the U.S. Nearly beat Germany to go to the semifinals. Deserved to beat Germany.
Yeah. So here's an interesting comment I'd like to ask you about, because he said... Our approach and our behavior, the sport here, the coaching, everything is just wrong. We are far too arrogant, far too obnoxious. We are egotistical, having never won anything or done anything. That's not the case around the world. You travel to Spain, Argentina, Germany. You run into coaches, sporting directors, and there's a humility about their work that does not exist here. And that, for me, seeing that is a big concern.
Yeah, I mean, I think, he's got a point. I think one line that I loved in there is you talk to the Barcelona age group coaches and they're humble asking you, he said. They're trying to learn from you. They're asking you, how do you approach this? What do you do? There's a humility and humble nature, and I love that. I think that should be the case with everybody. So if that's not the case here, or that's marginally the case here, that should be what we're striving for, in any country.
And youth development, I think. What this is, hold on, and Kat Moore, shout out to Audi International School. That's my old high school there. I know. Bonjour, comment ça va? We have, with youth soccer, I mean, what the World Cup, not qualifying for the World Cup has done is really focused. We talked about it in our last pod, but to refocus and to look internally at how can we change, and not just from the grassroots, because I think we all realize from the youth soccer's perspective, it needs to be a lot better, but from the top down, so from leadership, from Sunil Gulati at the board level, all the way down through the Athletes Council and the thing that I'm part of, but then just U.S. Soccer, Major League Soccer, developmental academies, everything across the board. And maybe start to take a look in the mirror and say, we don't have the perfect recipe, and let's get some outside help. Let's get some humility about it and realize, okay, we've had a catastrophic event in terms of U.S. soccer and on the global scale, but how can we use that to inspire change from within? And I think that's the biggest key.
Just a side note, Claudio's son Gio's probably 16 now.
Yeah, he's a really good player.
One of the best 16-year-olds in the country, and like usually our top 16-year-olds in the U.S. are close to world class as far as 16-year-olds around the world. So I think he's seen a lot of this through the age groups and has a ton of experience. My next subject matter.
Someone says it's hard to hear you. I'm coming through loud and clear. So that means you need to talk a little louder.
I have a terrible...
He has a tendency to be very quiet. I overproject.
Yes. Nick Young called me Batman because of my voice. He's a pro broadcaster.
I never thought of that. That was good.
He's a pro broadcaster, so, I mean, give me a break.
He's a pro podcaster.
So here's the one obvious thing that I think U.S. soccer should do is they need a high-performance center in Los Angeles. I mean, you have 20-plus million people in Southern California. Mm-hmm. It's a pay-to-play model. Why not service those thousands and thousands of kids that can't pay to play, that are in working-class neighborhoods, that love the game, whether it's the Latino community or getting into any inner-city community where kids, they don't have as many options. They aren't spoiled. They don't have the choices that my kids, frankly, have, where we pay to play and more times than not aren't hungry, you know?
Yeah.
So why, I would imagine, they say there's $150 million in the bank.
Yeah, actually, this is what this guy's asking here. In your opinion, sorry, it's Elizabeth Garcia. She said, in your opinion, what needs to be done to actually change the game? Meaning, what does U.S. need to improve? And I think that's just what you're elaborating on there. $150 million in cash reserves.
Whether you are going to partner with Cal State LA or find a piece of land in East LA or something, or thereabouts, I think there needs to be a place for a lot of these kids. You mentioned on our first pod that there was 3 or 4 kids better than you on your team in Houston growing up, Mexican kids that were terrific players, and then life gets in the way. And those kids around the world are getting shepherded and guided through academies and programs, whereas perhaps in Houston they were kind of left to survive on their own devices, which it didn't happen. Those kids should be in that high-performance academy, and there probably should be one in Texas as well. I mean, we're talking $150 million. You got to spend, you got to invest, and you'll make it tenfold, I believe, in a country that's
long term,
producing athletes. Has so many kids playing the game. But you got to keep those kids.
Yeah, and look, I'm not an economics major by any sense of imagination, but you could get those sponsored by companies that want to invest in grassroots.
I'm not saying it costs $150 million.
No, exactly, but I think it's a feasible ask to be able to build a high performance center and get a lead title sponsor, whether it be Target or all these companies that are passionate about soccer and development and community interests, whatever it might be. So to kind of combine all those things, I think there's a lot of different opportunities, but I think we both agree there are players falling through the cracks that can't afford to pay to play. And look, I'm not saying that everything that you do as a child now, whether it's piano lessons or tennis lessons, you're mostly paying for. But I find like soccer, in my history and talking to friends, it's that much more expensive than any other sport.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think the best high school basketball players in the country are paying to play AAU?
No.
No chance.
No chance.
So, I mean, it's just an inevitability. You got to find the talent, and you got to push them through the system. And the kids that can pay, and the kids that can't pay but are really good, they don't pay. And the U.S. is a unique proposition. It's a different landscape. But to me, you have IMG, that's done its thing.
Yeah.
There should be 3 of those, to start with, right away. Whether it's Texas and LA or wherever. I mean,
and IMG, the soccer part, the residency program is done.
It's done.
They just wiped it. Yeah.
Okay, so
this last year.
I mean, so now you went from 1 to 0. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's absolutely no question, like the national team.
So
here.
I'm curious of your opinion, and then I'll chime in after because this is something I did as a player. But Jermaine Jones came out publicly and was talking about. He said he thinks every young player should strive to go to Europe, should test themselves because that's where the best leagues in the world are, and they shouldn't settle for playing in Major League Soccer. It's been an ongoing debate for the longest time. Under Bob Bradley, the majority of the team played in Europe. Under Jurgen Klinsmann, it trended more back towards MLS, which is ironic because he wanted players to go to Europe.
He was a big advocate for the Europeans.
Yeah, but then MLS at that time were paying big money. So Michael Bradley's getting $6 million, Josie Altidore is getting $4 million, Clinton Dempsey's getting $7 million. So all these guys are coming back because they're getting paid a lot of money.
And not to tell secrets, but I spoke to Jurgen about it, and he said that a lot of the guys that came back to MLS for the payday, their levels dropped, their fitness levels dropped, their the speed of play, everything dropped. I mean,
Elizabeth says, "Who cares about this? Nash is hot." What temperature wise, or like what are we talking here? Mark Vogel says maybe start in MLS, improve, and then move abroad.
Look, I'm not saying 100% of kids got to go abroad, but I would say 90% need to try to fight to play at the highest level. I mean, to give you a quick analogy, like around the world, like these kids, the best kids are going to an academy at 12, the latest, right? Some countries 8
to 10.
But 10. Say at 12, every year after that, it's a street fight to keep your job. If you don't outlast the kid next to you, you're going home, and that's it for your soccer career. So it's a fight every day. Do you know the level that produces in general?
Massive.
Whereas here, it's pay to play. You're the hot stud by the time you're 12, 13, 14. Even if you go to an NCAA school, you're the big man on campus. Like you can only train with your team for 6 months. The other kids around the world are training 11 months of the year in a situation where if they don't perform, they're out. I mean, who's going to win?
From a pure soccer standpoint, they will win. And that's, I think, the ever-going debate in the United States as well because of college soccer, the balance between professional sports and education, the college soccer system that we have here that has changed dramatically. Whereas in the UK, much to your point, I was up against kids that were, when they got to 16, 17, they hadn't gone to school. They hadn't, professional soccer was all that you wanted to do. So, I think it's case specific. So I think for certain players, they're going to be better served developing in Major League Soccer. I, for one, went to England at 19. It didn't work out for me. I had different injuries. I went on trial with another team, Ipswich. I messed up my ankle. And then I came back to MLS for 4 years before then going to the Premier League. And I was much further as a player. I was more developed. I was tactically better. I just knew what it took to be a better professional all around and combine that with the talent. So I was indebted to MLS in that respect of getting me back even keel.
But that tells two sides of it.
Yeah.
One, that you went when the time was right for you and the MLS helped you get there. Two, if you had grown up in another country, you might have had an education that led you straight to the Premier League at 19. So you obviously had it right.
I asked you this the other day. I said, I wonder if I'd stayed in Scotland from kid until the professional level, where would I have ended up? Because I didn't grow till I was 19.
Right.
I'm still waiting to grow.
You never know. You never know. But look at not everyone has to go. Look at Landon had a fantastic career. I would have loved to see him stick it out in Europe longer because when he went to Everton on loan, he was really good.
Yeah.
So I would have loved to see him bite the bullet and get out of California.
We've got a Bolton fan on here. They said, what did they say? They said more American players needed in Bolton. Tim Ream, Stuart Holden. The problem is that soccer is way too expensive for these low-income families, says George.
More JJ
you've got one of your neighbors down on 34th Street says you need to come surf with us one day.
I'm down with that. Not really.
Stu, do you think the statements like the unthinkable just happened after the TNT loss is part of the arrogance problem in the U.S.? I want to touch on that a little bit because the unthinkable, I still think, and I firmly believe 100% that team is good enough to qualify for the World Cup. That group of players.
Zero question.
I know they've been criticized. I know they underperformed. We could talk about why as well, but the unthinkable, that's still unthinkable. That team is still better than Panama. That team is still better than Honduras. A Honduras team they beat 6-0 at home. A Panama team that they beat 4-0 at home. You can't tell me that we're not a better team. We're not a top 3 team in CONCACAF. Absolutely no question.
Let me put it this way. I think there's a way higher probability they finish first in CONCACAF than they don't make the World Cup. Looking at it on paper, that's how unthinkable it is.
So now everybody's criticizing the players, and they rightfully should. I mean, guys underperformed over the course of the Hex. I mean, the performance at home against Costa Rica was terrible, and I think that was the one that really turned the screw that didn't allow them to qualify. The first 2 losses, yes, against Mexico and Costa Rica were bad, but the way that they played in that game, I think, just set the tone for the rest of qualifying. So that specifically, I'm not even focused as much specifically on that squad because I'm looking at the bigger issue now because we already know that wasn't good enough. We know that the players underperformed. We know Bruce Arena picked the wrong team, which is clear. But now, everyone's talking about the U.S U17 team, which played tomorrow morning against England. Yeah, I have. Really good.
Yeah?
Some good players.
Tim
Weah's excellent. Scored the hat-trick against Paraguay. I just really do hope that every time with our youth teams, at the U20s, the last 17s, the Olympic team, they all do well to a certain point and then go crashing out of the tournament. When the 20s lost to a good Venezuelan team, it was like everybody was hyped up, thought they were going to make a deeper run, and then they lost. So this is a really big game, quarterfinals. It would be good to say the U.S. were in a semifinal, and then when you're at that point, anything can happen. So you could go on and win. So what do you think about Tottenham, by the way? This guy,
we can talk about Tottenham, but I just remembered my wife asked me to text the babysitter and tell her to be here at 5, and I forgot. Anyways, the stuff you get on this live pod.
Do you want me to text her?
It's the inside stuff. Well, I gotta get my phone. You guys don't need to worry about that. What do I think of Tottenham? Man, love it. No curse. Come on. I don't think Wembley suits us. It's not a home environment for a Premier
But why?
League team. I mean, it's just first. It's not.
This is everybody talks about this. Why are Spurs so bad at Wembley?
First of all, they beat Dortmund at Wembley. They won on the weekend at Wembley. The last match they played at Wembley. So I think they're building momentum and comfort at Wembley. It doesn't suit them. I mean, you go into this massive stadium. I'm sure they're getting 75, 80,000.
Do you play Liverpool this weekend?
This weekend, Liverpool.
This guy says Liverpool are going to smash you something.
Big talker. Cheers. You think you'll keep a clean sheet? How about that one?
He's drinking water. Oh, and by the way, Brighton beat West Ham 3-0 just now in the Premier League. I don't know why they're playing on a Friday. Do you know?
There's a few Fridays this year. You should know that, Mr. Football.
I don't cover the Premier League now.
Jeez. Played in the Premier League.
What, I'm curious of your take on this because basketball is not the same as this. The English Premier League with managers, I mean, 50% or something like of that of managers get sacked before the end of a year. Like barely any Premier League managers make it past 2 seasons. And Craig Shakespeare out at Leicester. Claudio Reyna, Ranieri. I'm talking U.S. soccer already. Ranieri wins the Premier League next season and floating around the relegation zone, out the door.
Look, for me, there's 2 things going on. The media push that, which is ridiculous. Clubs should be. If clubs stopped doing that, the media wouldn't expect it so quickly. My daughter just sent me a text to play Cup Pong on text. Jeez.
We're playing real pong here, Bella.
So but if clubs stop succumbing the media, saying pressure, because that's the newspaper game, right?
Yeah.
There's clicks and controversy. 1, 2. I mean, I think people should do a better job vetting their coaches in the first place. I think too many clubs have a now attitude instead of we're going to build something. We want to pick someone that's right to build something, and we want to stick with them. For me, I don't know, as owners of Real Mallorca, for us, it's all about, and it's very, in the Spanish market, it's even worse.
But we kind of got bit for that, though, last season. We stayed too loyal to 2 managers.
It's true.
When we should have moved on from them. So,
But I would argue that I'd rather be bit, trying to be loyal, trying to give someone a chance, trying to stick with someone. There's an old adage, hire slow, fire fast. And I think it makes a lot of sense. But we just bought the club. We are making a bunch of changes. A guy keeps us up on the last day of the season, and we didn't want to get rid of him, even though there were signs that maybe it wasn't up to snuff. It wasn't modernized enough. It wasn't, I don't think as detailed as it needed to be. So I personally think we look at our core values, we set our core values, what do we stand for, and that shapes every decision. You know what?
And you stay true to it no matter what, because in the Premier League you're talking hundreds of millions of pounds, and at a certain point you start to get a little twitchy there.
Yeah, and look, every situation, every decision.
That was twitchy.
Every situation is different, so there's no black and white. But I think, we want to, like, for example, in Spain, most clubs change their manager every year almost, it seems like.
Yeah.
Whereas we tell our manager right now, we want this to be a partnership. We want there to be as much trust as possible, with famous last words from ownership group. But we want you to be here for 5, 10, 50, as long as you can be here and we're successful. So we want to give him all the resources, all the backing to do well. And I think it's a shame that the way the game is like that.
I know.
So many people succumb to the media or don't vet.
But is that also an indication of, and this is a huge issue, and I don't even know if I want to open this can, but why not? Promotion, relegation, and the fact that you could lose a serious amount of value of your club by being relegated, because in the NBA and in Major League Soccer and in the NFL, you don't get relegated. If you have a bad year, you actually get a boost. You get the first draft pick for the next season. So, that's where I think the pressure comes in. And John, we have a guy from Mallorca who's very... Johnny says, Vasquez was never the right man. Best signing was Vicente Moreno. I would actually agree with you right now.
I would agree. Having said that, and not that I knew much about it, because we're just learning... Vasquez did keep us up.
Yeah,
so,
the first year.
We thank him for that. We could have been down. Maybe we would have been back up by now, but would have been down. So we're learning as we go to show all our cards. It's hard, and we're learning, especially that it's hard from the West Coast of California to be affecting a club positively. So we've worked so hard this summer. We've already been over there once this year, trying to implement, stay in touch, build. Like I said, our values, what we stand for, what's going to shape all our decisions to build a club that continue to rise. I mean, what are we, 8 wins and 1 draw?
Yeah.
This year, obviously, we're in the third division.
Top of the league.
That.
The whole Segunda, we're first place.
Out of 80 teams. In the third division, there's 80 teams, 4 divisions. We're first of all 80. But we know that can change. We know you need to be healthy. We know the manager needs to continue to have a grasp and a respect to the players, which is tricky. But so far, he's been fantastic.
And Chris is saying too many clubs are kicking out quality managers too quickly after 1 or 2 seasons, not giving a new manager time to shape their own team and build for the future, which is something we talked about a lot with Pochettino. But going back to promotion relegation, do you think, what's your take on that? I mean, obviously giving the minnows a chance.
I think it's fantastic. It's never going to happen here. But I would argue that there should be a tournament to get your draft pick. So in the NBA and the MLS, I think the teams that don't make the playoffs, they have to play a tournament for the first pick. That, first of all, would be fantastic for the league because everyone's still playing at the end of the season. 2, you can't just tank
to get the lottery pick. Yeah,
you have to play it out, and then you get a seed in that draw, and the higher seeds get a chance. So the teams that are
you place that much value on a draft pick
in the NBA.
In the NBA,
1,000%.
In the NBA, yes. Because I don't necessarily see it as important in soccer. In Major League Soccer.
Fair enough, but what I like is the ethos. I like saying you can't tank, 1. 2, you're still playing. Fans, can you imagine the fan bases loving that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we had a terrible year. Now we're throwing in a tournament to try to get the number 1 pick.
And all it does is up the value of what that number 1 pick would be.
Ups the value of the whole league.
Yeah.
It gives up the value of the league, the number 1 pick, gets media interest, builds fans. It's fantastic.
How do you feel about that idea? Elizabeth says, great chat, guys. Next time, shirts off. Chow.
Jesus.
Well, you can chow down. No.
Just this guy fancies himself, so probably will.
I haven't worked out in a while. Too many sweets. All right.
That was a lame response.
Well, I know.
I think we were kind of blushing.
Yeah, let me just see what I've got.
So let's get some questions going.
Yeah, a couple more questions here. We'll keep chatting a few more.
Someone said over there, who was your old midfield mate? Was it Davis?
Mark Davis.
Mark Davis said Stu Holden, Mark Davis over Iniesta, Xavi.
I mean, it's a close one. I mean, Xavi and Iniesta haven't really won much.
It's close.
We won the Manchester Senior Cup, maybe.
It's close if you played in the phone booth.
Yeah, that'd be right. A 2-foot Xavi in the phone booth, my knee would go out. How is your time in Bolton? I love Bolton. Steve Nash, any chance you would run for a U.S. soccer president? What do you think of Save the Crew hashtag? Well, we talked about Save the Crew at the start. It's okay. You can be Canadian and run for U.S. soccer president.
I mean, Schwarzenegger was governor of California.
Yeah. So, would you run for it?
No. No chance. No chance.
How do I feel about the prospect of Landon Donovan running for it? I think Landon, he's got certainly a great pedigree in terms of the soccer background.
From what I hear, he's not running though.
Yeah, I don't think he really wants to take that on. I love everybody just throwing their name in the hat right now, not really knowing what that position entails. I mean, it is a lot of work. You're managing, first of all, a business that is a nonprofit, but that has $150 million in the bank. That you're dealing with.
The first thing you should do, there should be a salary for that position.
100%.
I mean,
it's not even a question that that's not.
It's not a foundation.
He does it, and then the CEO gets $600,000 a year. Then you're dealing with NWSL, FIFA, Major League Soccer, Soccer United Marketing, the U.S. Soccer Foundation. I mean, on and on and on and on.
It needs a bit of a cleanup.
It does need a cleanup.
Especially the CEO's getting $600,000 a year.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that position.
And there's so many great mentors when you talk about the ownership groups, and I mean, come on, let's clean this up.
And then someone's asking, what do you think about the Whitecaps this season, chances in the playoffs?
Whitecaps, oh man, what an incredible year for the Whitecaps.
So they played this weekend, deadline day.
We coughed it away at home against...
I'm going to pull up the table here.
We coughed it away against... my wife's telling me we need to leave.
You have to leave. Well, looks like we've only got a minute or so, or maybe 15. Sorry, Lena.
Yes. Sorry, love.
Be right there. So you guys are top. Portland are up 50.
We're top, but we play Portland this weekend.
Oh, that's massive.
That's Portland, I believe.
And then Seattle could also jump
so
in.
We kind of choked it at home because we had a chance to win it, but we drew with San Jose. But what a year for Vancouver. We made so many days I thought, oh, what kind of football are we playing? But we made so many changes. We brought in so many guys. We gave them a chance. We kept going. And somewhere along the line, I think, compared to the start of the year or last year, you started to see a group of guys that were playing for each other. And all of a sudden, we went from 6th, 7th, 8th up to first place, and with some margin. And so, we didn't have the ball a lot, but we were great on the counter. We were a difficult team to beat. We got some surprising wins, I think, along the way. That now you look back on, of course, when you're top of the table, and go, that's not surprising. But at the time, we kind of outdid ourselves. So,
but also, you guys have stuck with Carl Robinson through a couple losing seasons and believed in what he's doing with youth development and first of all, yes, I think Bolton will stay up because of
but not losing seasons consecutively. So last year was a tough year. The year before, we had a bye in the playoffs. So we've had a good year, a bad year, another good year this year. So, here's my thing, right? Like, sure, there's a million managers out there, but the MLS is an interesting entity. I think it's difficult for people to come into the league, haven't had any experience with the league. What Carl's done for us is
RoboCop.
He's created a culture. We've had some success. He's able to work with all sorts of different players in a changing team as we try to find the right fit. And I think what you see right now is a manager we've invested 3 or 4 years in. So you've invested 3 or 4 years in a guy. What happens after year 5 or 6? It could go south, or you could say we stuck with him. We're turning a corner. He's really built something here. So that's always the predicament, I think, when people rotate coaches is you've invested a lot of time in this person. First of all, if not him, who?
Yeah.
And second of all, is he close, like a startup, to turning the corner, and do you pull the plug?
Do you keep investing in him? Yeah. All right.
Shout out to Robo.
Well, anyways, this guy has to leave. I don't want him to, get the old again.
Done that before.
So make sure you subscribe to all of our social channels. We're doing this a lot. We're going to mix it up. We've got some exciting stuff in the works. But at 2 Dads United on both Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. I think we're getting started on there, right? Anyways, we'll post some stuff all over the content. But follow his channel, follow mine. Stay with us, and we'll try not to put you to sleep. Or maybe we already have.
Thank you.
All right, Steve, you're in trouble. Go.
Bye.
All right, good.
All right.
That was all right?
That was good. I enjoyed that.
Nice setting.
Beautiful setting.
Oh, yeah.